Welcome to the Lovers Lounge podcast, where we talk to experts and other guests on topics related to love, relationships, and sex. I am your host, Tina Love, and once again, for a continuation of our conversation, I have minister and author Yolanda Nelson. Yolanda, welcome back to the Lovers Lounge.
Hi, Tina. Thank you for having me back. How are you?
Well, I'm doing all right. The allergy season is here and everything. It gives me a little problems, but I'm making it. I'm making it. So
Good.
I'm
I'm glad.
really glad to have you on the show again. You were with us before in the Lovers Lounge, and that was on episode 22, and we talked about your book called Singletude. We talked quite a bit about that, and we were talking about a variety of things, and one thing we didn't talk about, and we promised that we would talk about, is sex and being saved and single. So we're going to get into that, but before we do, why don't you
Okay.
just bring us up to speed again about singletude and what it is?
Well, singletude is an attitude. It's like any other attitude you have, but it's the attitude of being successfully saved and single.
Successfully saved and single. And I think I had you to elaborate on what makes you successfully saved and single.
Well, I think in order to be successful, you really have to know what not being successful looks like. And that was me in the beginning. And actually, how the book came about, I was struggling and I wanted to please God with my whole life. I loved Him, I dedicated my life to Him. And this is what He was requiring of me. And at that moment, I'm like, how do you guys do this? I don't know how this works. I was divorced. I had partner and I enjoyed a healthy sex life. And I'm like, how do you go from having sex to not having sex, but I want to please God? And, these were the questions and situations that I was dealing with. So in the beginning, I was very unsuccessful. And then there came a point when I realized that, wow, you can be successful in this area if you choose to be.
Yeah. I speaking of struggling, in now, last time we talked, I hadn't read your
Mhm.
book. So we were just kind of navigating through a conversation, but I hadn't actually read the book, but I talked with you a little bit about singletude. This time, of course, I was able to look at the book. And so there's a lot that I want to unpack about that book and what you talked about. But it was so
Okay.
funny. You're from Philadelphia, right?
Yes, ma'am.
The city of brotherly love. And it was so interesting reading your journey because you just mentioned the struggle. And I really want you to elaborate on that struggle because you you describe in your book your experience about being invited to visit this church. And I think the reason why you went to the church in the very beginning, it wasn't because you were trying to be really saved at that time.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about going back to church. My sister had started attending the church, and she's
Yes.
like, "Hey, you should come to church with me." I'm like, "Yeah, okay," because I was, the Easter, Christmas, Mother's Day. That's when you
Right,
go because
right,
that's when your mom wants you to go.
right, right.
Because once I was, as when I was being raised, my mom has us in church all the time, and I was like, I can't wait to get out. Once I get become an adult, I'm out. I'm out of here.
Right, right.
And so it wasn't something that, I did. And then my sister was like, you really need to come to church. And I was like, no, I don't. And she's like, well, come on, just come. The pastor's cool. He's nice looking and he can sing. And I'm like, well, at least he'd be all right to look at. And I can hear a nice song or something. Everybody loves
Mm-hmm.
gospel music. And I got there. And what was so interesting when I walked through the door, this lady
Right.
looked at me and she said, hi. And I'm like, hi. Because I couldn't register her face. I'm like,
Right.
oh my God, I know. She spoke to me like she knew me so well. I'm like,
Yeah.
who is this lady? So I'm looking at my memory banks trying to figure it out. And come to find out, I didn't know her. But her warmth and her inviting and her sheer joy at what she did felt so wholesome that from the door, I was pleased to be there because you know how I don't know if you guys have met
Hospitality or
the
yeah.
yeah, but I don't know if you've met the bad hospitality
Oh,
ones
oh
because
yeah.
I've. It seems like if there was something bad about church, I think I experienced it, and I was like, So, or maybe I don't know. I don't want to. Any yes, I experienced it. So I walked in, and from that moment, I was like still trying to figure out how I knew her, and I
Right.
sat down. And the service was amazing. The word was clear. I understood, and it wasn't a gospel of a God that no matter what you did, you couldn't measure up to His laws. And it was telling of a person who went to the cross and died for us, and that there is a way. If you want to find the way, and this
Right.
is the way you do it. And I was like, wait, what are we talking about here? Because that's
What
not.
you
Well, no, because when I went to church, I fell asleep. I was like, okay, because if they do that hoop and holler thing, and no disrespect to, because there's a lot of pastors who hoop and holler, but they still have a good word. So,
Yes,
but at that
yes.
time, I couldn't distinguish. All I knew is he breathed one more time like
Right.
that, he might pass out.
Right. Well,
And
and it was
so,
yeah, it was so funny because you talked about how it was almost as though, you were coming back Sunday after Sunday and it was almost as though this person like they had the surveillance at your house or something and then
oh
you'd
my
come to church
God,
and
because
then
he would
they'd be talking
preach
right
on
to
the
you.
stuff I was. Yes, he would preach on the things that I was dealing with. I'm like, wait, who put a camera in my house and told him about what was going on in my house? Because the word was so relevant and so understandable that it was things that I was dealing with. And I'm thinking from the inside out. I'm not thinking about no one else. The message was for everyone involved, and
Mhm.
and I'm sure there were bits and pieces for everybody, but it seemed like the whole message was about Yolanda. Like, you got to get it together. I'm like, oh.
Yes, yes, yes.
But
That
it
was
wasn't a condemning message. So that's why I came back, because if it was condemning, like you going to hell, brimstone, then I don't think I would have come back. But it was a loving message,
yes, yes.
And in this process, the whole time, I didn't get any
Nation.
condemnation. I
Mhm.
got love and truth and facts and things, tools that can help me. But yeah, so I felt like they had a surveillance camera in my house. I was like, oh my goodness, I would have to go home and have a drink.
Right,
Yeah,
right, right.
I would
So,
leave the church and go drink because
yeah,
I was.
yeah.
I told you I was unsuccessful at first.
You were ready. You weren't ready. And that's where that struggle was coming in at because you had friends, you had friends that knew you from, the way you've always been. But then you were trying to kind of go through this change at the same time. So you had people
Well,
kind of,
no, I wasn't trying to go through the change. I didn't even understand what was going on. I just knew
yeah,
that now I understood some things, and a part of me started hearing God, and I'm like, oh, who are you,
okay,
and why are you talking to me,
right,
And it wasn't an audible voice. It was just that still soft voice that's inside
right,
of you, like your conscience, you can call it, but it was something different. And it was like, I'm like, wait, pump your brakes. I'm not ready. And I, I was always real with God. I wasn't trying to, oh, Father, wherefore I'll. It was always a real conversation. He's
absolutely,
my Father. So I went to him like, look, I'm not ready to change like that. I'm just getting to know you again. It was like we were in this new relationship, and then, I was learning so many good things. I'm like, wait, I'm not ready to give up some of that other stuff yet.
right, right,
So slow
right.
down.
Yeah. And it was interesting because you mentioned in the book that it was a point where you shared that you kind of felt like you were using God as your quote unquote
Oh, like he was my
hoe.
hoe.
Yes, talk
Yeah,
about
my
that.
hoe.
Yeah.
So you know, I use words that make you really really think. And the reason why I said hoe is because what is a hoe? A hoe is your hoe on the side. You only go see them when you want something from them. You
Right.
don't really have a relationship with them. It's just, I need something that this person offers. So when I need it, I'll go check them out. But when I don't need it, I don't want to hear from you. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to be around you. So technically, that's how I was treating God, like he was
Right.
my hoe.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
it's like, when something went wrong, oh Father, I'm in his face, I'm seeking him. But once it was done, it was like, I'm back to my life.
Yeah. And so you
Oh.
finally then went into making a decision then to really follow Christ and you went through this process.
Mhm.
where you had to assess the situations in your life. I think you call it the 3 A's.
Yes.
Yep. Assess the situations in your life, assume responsibility for your role, and acknowledge that you needed God's help. So, can you break down what exactly assessing the situations in your life was like, that
So,
process?
based on the conversation we were, this is these 3 A's can be applied to any area of your life that you're going through. Because a lot of times, I think we focus on the one thing that's not working right, and we don't properly assess where we are. We'll say, like, we'll focus on that one thing as opposed to everything else. I mean, 99 things could be going right, and then that one thing could go wrong. And for me, I was getting to know a savior. I was hearing from a God that had been not dormant, but I didn't know him.
Mm-hmm.
I was learning things that all my life I heard over and over again, but it was like when I was here, it was unlocked, like, oh, that's what that meant. It wasn't even deep,
Mm-hmm.
but it was deep before because I wasn't trying to understand. But now that I was open to it, and so instead of assessing that this is a process, this is something that's changing and going through the metamorphosis, a lot of us don't assess the situation properly, and then I had to assume responsibility for my role.
Yes,
I talk
yes.
about how the I didn't understand the word, but I didn't seek out knowledge either.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like the style of preaching, but I didn't seek out a different place. I didn't, there were ushers that were maybe not so nice, but I didn't, I used that as an excuse
Mm-hmm.
not to go further because I wanted to do what I wanted to do,
Ah, okay.
and I didn't want any restraints or any um, life that I had to live up to these certain standards because I thought the standards were unrealistic in an current time.
Yeah. So then you had
And
to,
then
oh, I was going to
and
say,
then after and then there comes a time when you have to acknowledge
right. That's what I
that
was
you
getting at.
need
Yeah.
God.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's like when the as they say the rubber hits the road and situations, because you can play on both sides for only a short period of time, and that's what I was pretty much doing. I wasn't hot, I wasn't cold, I was just like in the
Lukewarm.
middle, like
Yeah.
I don't want to let go of this, but I'm loving getting to know you. But then I had to realize that even in the singleness that I was going through, that the issues and the problems that I had never acknowledged that I needed God's help in it. This was something that Yolanda was going to do.
Mm,
Like I'll handle it, I'll do it my way, and I failed every time. And
yeah.
then it got frustrating
Right.
until I said, till I had a conversation with my pastor, and that one of she was the the female pastor, and I said, "What is wrong?" I'm like, I have the knowledge to know what to do and what not to do. And I have chosen to live a life of celibacy until I find, my husband that God has for me. So why am I failing?
Mm-hmm.
And it was, she said that, first of all, she didn't condemn me because I told her I dropped the ball again.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't say, well, nothing was nothing. It was always love. And she said, you know what, can I ask you a question? And I was like, absolutely. She said, have you ever ask for God's assistance in this process? And you know what my response to her, and I just as clear as the day. I said, you know what? I didn't want to ask for his help because I thought he would take it away and not give it back.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that was, I mean, I meant that because I enjoyed
Yeah.
it. And I was
Yeah.
like, what if he took it away and just never gave it back to me?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and speaking of failing, you also came to a point where you determined that you needed to forgive, and not only forgiving people, but forgiving yourself. So, can you talk a
You
little
know
bit
what?
about that?
Oh, yes, I can. You know what? It's so funny because a lot of times I don't know if other people do this, but I do. It's like I could look at a situation and see it from my perspective out, but never from the opposite way. So it was like, oh yeah, I got to forgive this person for this, and I need to forgive that person for that. But it was never like, I would have never thought in 100 years I would say I had to forgive me for some things. I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
what do you mean me? I didn't do nothing. I was the victim. These things happened to me. What do I have to be forgiven? Huh? That
Right.
didn't sound right. And clearly, it was when you acknowledge the situation, you'll start seeing the things that where you do need to forgive yourself. It was okay to get into that relationship knowing full well that that wasn't one that you were going to
Right.
continuing along. It was okay that you made a decision that you knew was going to go against your decision of celibacy. It was okay that you did it. You need to forgive yourself and move on. No one made you do it. You didn't walk down the street, trip, and fall on someone's penis. It didn't happen like that. Because sometimes I think we realize, oh my God, you wake up and you're like, how did I get here?
No.
You made a process to get
Right.
there.
Right. 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 You
And the
didn't
same
just.
process that you can use to get there is the same process. If you choose to, you cannot go there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Which
yeah.
which brings me to then the wrong thinking. Wrong thinking, right thinking, which you talk about in the book. So yeah, so break that down, because now that we're talking about doing the things that, you know, don't get us in these
Oh,
positions, that brings me to wrong thinking and right thinking.
so I don't have this pinky promise. I don't have this ring that you wear that is you. It's all about your thoughts. If in the Bible, um, I know I can't think about what it is, but it's like a renewing of your mind, renewing of your mind. It's stated over and over and over again because the real battle is not in our genitals; it's in our mind.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
once we can correct our thoughts and the way we think, then we can move to a area of victory. So wrong thinking starts out that first of all that you don't need God's help like I thought that I could do it by myself along the process. And secondly, that it's okay to open your mind to thoughts that take you down a road where it's going to lead to where you're going to
Do something you regret.
fail.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You'll
Oh, that
fail.
that brings me to this example you gave in the book. Yeah, this is perfect.
Okay.
Where you're driving along and or somebody's driving along. You give an example of a person driving along and they hear a song. Maybe it's
Yes,
what is that?
sexual
Sexual
healing.
healing. Where did
Yes,
I get
by
that feeling?
Marvin Gaye.
Yes, 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 yes. So you hear this, and so your mind starts to go somewhere. So talk about wrong thinking and right thinking in respect to that example of you're driving
So
along, you hear this song, and it makes you think of this ex. Yeah, talk about
So
that.
you're in the car and you and your ex's song come on and you like your mind starts to think about the ex and then do you ever realize that I don't know if it's ever happened to you but then you'll get a call from
Oh
them
God, yeah,
and it's like hey you was just on my mind and you're like that was funny.
yeah.
I was just thinking about you too. Now, first we have to understand that there is an adversary as well. I don't talk about that a lot because I want to talk about the victory, but we can't be mindless to think that there is not a
An
force that's
enemy.
out there as well trying
Mm-hmm.
to make us fail.
Oh yeah.
He can because we win. However, if we succumb to the things that he can put in place, like when you open your mind, it's like, you know what, hey, I remember it. The ex calls you on the phone. Well, you know what, babe, I was thinking about you. It's like, yeah, I was thinking about you, but you in a relationship. Are you married now? He's like, you know what? You have to make a decision that, there's sometimes you could, oh, well, it's just a conversation. Oh, it's just a thought. It's a door
Mm-hmm.
and it's a door that if you allow it to open, that you may not have control over what's going to come through that door.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a person that knows you, and there's soul ties, and that's a whole different
Right. Right.
conversation. But you may still have some soul ties that you're working through with this person, and you may not understand it, but you can't deal with that still playing in that area. And wrong thinking says, hey, I can talk to him. He's just my ex. It's not that deep.
Right.
A couple
Right.
of days, weeks later, y'all, you don't know how you got in ex's bed.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could say, you know what? it was. I'm glad you called. I'm glad you're thinking of me. But you have a great day, okay? It's not about being nasty, and it's not about, but it's about protecting yourself, especially if you're working on
Very,
something.
very
And it
good.
was something that I had to do. I had to learn to say, you know what? I was that person that said, I want to see how far I can get away, how much I can get away with without sinning.
Yeah.
So, and we'll talk more about that when we get to have sex and
I'm
not to have
sure.
sex.
Yes, yes,
But
yes, 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 yes.
that
Okay.
that was me. So it was like it's for me, and it may not be that way for others, but for me, it's all or nothing. So I have to choose nothing, and knowing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if I know what my triggers are, and you should know what your triggers are, and
Mm-hmm.
what you're going to do, and what the different situations, how you deal with different situations. But it starts with your thinking,
Yes.
and
And being
you
able to
have to
recognize.
choose.
Yeah.
Yes, and we have control. It's I get people and they're like, well, I don't know. It just something takes over me. I don't know. You're not, and we are not animals, and we are not moved
Right.
by our emotions. We are moved by our choices.
Yeah.
So we make a choice to succumb to a feeling, but we have the strength, the will, and the intellect to say, you know what, I'm not going to do it. I'm
Not
working on
today.
something.
Yeah, not today.
God has something better,
Mm-hmm.
and I want better. You
Yeah.
know, it's
Yeah.
not. And it's a two-part thing. I want what God has for me, and I know that God has the best for me. So it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing that I want the best.
Right, right, right. So that rolls us right into a couple of other things that you deal with in the book, the sin cycle
Hmm.
and active sin. So can you talk to our singles about that? What do you mean by
And
the sin cycle and active sin?
so that's why wrong thinking, because it starts with your thoughts.
Right.
That's where it begins. And the cycle is okay, once I let the thoughts in, then thoughts become actions, and actions become something that I go after. And the sin cycle is this: there's a point where you're actively working, trying to do what you wanted to do, then you move to the next point, and then before you know it, you're in lasciviousness. That means you're turned over to that thing, and it's like YOLO. You only live once, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like what I'm doing is wrong. Where so I started somewhere, going somewhere, and you know what? I just want to say this right here. This is for someone who's made a decision that they want to live their life for Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no condemnation for anyone that is still going through the process.
Right.
So if you are going through the process, then I think there's a lot of information in here. Because if you notice, we start about me, failing. I got tired of failing, and eventually, most people get tired of failing too. And the one important thing that we have that we can never get back, well, two things: your virginity you can't get back, but the second thing is time.
Yeah.
And you don't want to waste time
Yeah.
somewhere where you could have made some
Different
course corrections
decisions.
and got to
Yeah.
your destination a little bit sooner.
Right.
So yeah, so it the sin cycle is, you have people out there that love God, and it doesn't mean that you don't love them, but they feel like, you know what, I'm okay with having sex with my partner and things like that. But for me, this is what he was requiring for me. This is what he actually requires of all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what his word says.
Mm-hmm.
And it is possible and very doable. And what I'm saying is, I'm your cheerleader, and I want to, be cheering you on the sides, like saying that if this is what you want to do, you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. You talk about being the cheerleader all throughout the book with your palms
Because
standing on the
we
side. Yeah.
need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, purple and gold,
Yep. Yep.
royalty.
Yes,
Because we'll
exactly.
get to that when we get to diamonds, but we have to understand who we are and whose we are. And then we won't look at ourselves like, you know what, this is just temporary till I figure it out. It's like, no, you're not worthy of who I am, and the destiny and purpose that God's placed inside of me. And you could be a distraction, a deterrent of taking me longer to get to where my place that God has for me. And that's the tag of the book. The book says there's no ecstasy like
Yeah.
destiny. There's
Yeah.
not a drug. There's not an orgasm. There's not another person that will bring you the joy, the peace, in the purpose
Of
that you
being,
get in Christ.
yeah, 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 being right where he puts you to be, or wants you to be anyway. Okay,
Yeah.
so now this is bringing us to the chapter, right? To have sex or not have sex? That's the question, right?
Yeah.
So, and girl, it was so funny. The funny story that you wrote about Miss What to Do, and yeah,
And
and
Mr.
Mr.
Coco
Coco
Brown
Brown. Yes,
with
yes,
the
yes, yes. Yes,
smile. Woo!
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
So funny. So, talk about paint that picture for us, because I want people to go out and get this book, because you got to read this book. But anyway, paint that
So
picture for us. Yeah.
in this chapter, what to do, and these names have a reason. Well, we already talked about that.
Yeah.
So what to do meets Mr. Coco Brown, and Mr. Coco Brown has all the right, things. He loves God. He's handsome, and he wants to take her out, right? And they go out, they talk, and then talking, she finds out some stuff about Coco Brown because people will tell you who they are up front if you listen.
Mm-hmm.
So he's telling her some things about how he loves God. He's a musician, a worship artist, and how he was celibate, was operative word, was celibate, and then he met someone, and it started off with talking on the phone, and then heavy petting, and then heavy petting
Right.
turned. This is the sense cycle. It started off with how much can I get away with without having sex, without failing. How much can I get away with it and still not sin? So it's like this is what happened in his life,
Right.
and he's telling what to do about it. And she's like, "Oh, she got to make a decision." He's like, "Well, it's time to go. Do you want to go to my house and watch some movies? Basically, Netflix and chill."
Right.
We all
Right.
know what that means. It don't mean no movie, and it don't mean no children. It means sex. And she was very attracted to this guy. He was very attracted to her, and it was like they were. Whew, you got to read. I'm not telling y'all
Right. Right.
everybody
Right.
because you got to read it. But
Yeah.
it's
There was a
good,
lot that happened before then.
especially at the pool scene. Woo,
Yes.
woo.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Yes.
anywho,
Pool
so
table. Pool table scene.
the
Yeah. Not
pool
the
table,
not the
yeah.
swimming pool. But go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, not the pool table
Yep.
scene.
Yep. Yep.
And so he takes her home, and he's like, "You sure you don't want to, you know, go to my house? I promise not to hurt you, or baby, I'm not gonna do anything you don't want me to do." And what to do kid is like, it's not about what he won't want them to do. She knew at that moment she had to make a choice,
Yeah.
and like many of us have to, we get to a point where we got to make a choice. And it depends on what you want to do, or what you're working on, and where you are in your process. Because what to do decided at that moment that she had to do something. And we have to be reminded that when we have situations that come up, especially when, and you know what? It's so crazy because these situations don't come up with somebody you don't like. Because if you didn't like them,
It would be
it would be
easy.
easy to
Yeah.
be like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
no, like please. But it's always someone that you want, or something that you want, and you have to make a decision. You have to make a choice. I'm not gonna tell you what she did, what her choice was, y'all. Y'all gotta have to
Right.
read the
Right.
book.
Yeah.
But it's a great scene, and what I'm saying is, I remember times like that when I had to make a decision where I failed, and then I remember after I incorporated the Holy Spirit help, and started realizing, accepting my
Right.
situation,
Right. Right. The three
assuming
A's.
responsibility, the
Yep.
three
Yep. Yep.
A's,
Yep.
that then I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this. And it wasn't, I'm not doing this because I didn't want to. Child, I think that sex is, this is just Yolanda, this is not Bible. I think that an orgasm is God's way of showing us how beautiful heaven's going to be. That's just me, y'all. Don't
Mm-hmm.
quote me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can quote me, but say Yolanda said it. It's not biblical. But it's so wonderful. It's so awesome. So, to when you decide and you learn how much that God loves you, and how much He wants more than just an orgasm for you. He
Right.
wants you to be intellectually, spiritually, physically. He knows exactly what you want. That's what His Word tells us. So we want one dimension, and He's trying to give us the full dimension.
And not
When you go
just
to dinner,
yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, and not just what you want, but he also knows what you need.
Yes, yes, and that's what I was gonna say. Is like when you go to dinner for the full course,
Right.
but the dessert is so delicious. You just want to eat the dessert first, but you're gonna miss out on all this other beautiful, wonderful all stuff, and you can't just eat dessert all day, right?
Right, right.
But you
Unfortunately.
can enjoy the full meal, and that's just an analogy of God wanting to give you everything that you think you need and
Hmm.
everything that He knows you need.
That's right.
And sometimes it has nothing to do with we 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 uh we we think, because He said, "I your thoughts ain't even my thoughts."
Yes,
He
yes.
said, "My thoughts are hiding your thoughts." So
Hmm.
I created you. I know every hair on your body,
Yes.
so I know what works well with you. Allow me, allow me to bless you with this person that I've created
Just for you.
wonderfully for you,
Yes.
just
Amen.
for you.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
And then, one of the great chapters that you had after that was about abuse. And this was really something that struck me because you talk about how, you know, mental and physical and emotional abuse and a woman's response or a single lady's response or a married lady's response for that respect, but what it should be. So why don't you talk about that?
So, abuse is real, and while we're talking about different relationships, some people. One of the stories in the book is about a female that I knew,
Hmm.
and of course, all things are all. There's no regular name, so you ain't gonna know who I'm talking about. And she was in a situation, and she would talk about how it was a shame that he abused her. And please, I hope people hear my heart
Yeah.
and not just my words. It's like the, I told her that the moment I asked her, I said, "What made you leave?" She said, "Well, I just couldn't take it no more." I'm like, "Well, what was it that changed?" Because it was a continual thing. It wasn't just the abuse happened once; it was
That's
continual.
what abuse is. Yeah.
And she finally said that I finally said that enough was enough.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there is a point when you knew blows ago that
Yeah.
it was enough.
Yeah.
But for different reasons, people stay. And abuse is not just for women. Women may be the recipient of it the most, but there are men that are abused as well.
Absolutely.
And what I'm saying is, you don't have to. You were not created to receive the abuse from any other person,
Right.
and you don't have to do it. And I understand. So just to, you know, they call it. There's I can't think of the name, but anyway, they set a situation up where you're basically dependent on this person,
Hmm.
and so it makes leaving really, really hard.
Oh, yeah.
And these people, the monster that comes out is also the sweetest person in the world that treats you the best. We also saw what's love got to do with it. You know what
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean? And
Oh, yeah.
how he would abuse her, and then he would come back,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then he would be the sweetest person ever. So we understand that it's emotional and it's challenges. However, there is help. And one of the things that I've tried to assist people is saying that when you're ready, seek help. And
Yes.
there are things that have been put in place that can help you through the process.
Absolutely.
Because there never is there a time where abuse is okay. And even in marriages, if you're being abused, and you need to take yourself out of that situation. There is counseling for the abuser. There are things, but you can't help them. No matter, you can't make it right. You can't clean the house, so you can't make. There's nothing that you're gonna do except for help them get help. And if they don't choose to, then you have to remove yourself from the situation.
Well, and
So abuse is real.
yeah, and Yolanda, you're a minister, and I mean, there are oftentimes women who think, well, I've married this person, and so my marriage vows say that I'm in it for, better or worse, richer or worse, or sickness and health, all this, and so oftentimes they will cling on to that and saying that I can't
Yeah,
leave
well,
this
they want.
person. So, what do you
So
think?
first and foremost, I have a whole lot of thoughts. We may need another session
Exactly.
about this, because it says that the husband is supposed to love the wife like Christ loved the church.
Uh huh. My favorite. Yep.
Christ never beat the church.
Okay.
He didn't abuse the church. There was nothing about, and even when they talk about the wives submitting to your husband, it wasn't a submission of where you were his maid or his footstool or something. Christ
Hmm.
gave his life
Yes, he did.
for the church. He became the sacrificial lamb for us.
Yeah.
So if the man is not sacrificing his everything to be with you and being the man of God that he's supposed to cover your family, to give vision for the family, to set the tone of where you're going, to pray and put standards in place, then
It's hard.
and a lot of times there's a lot of what we go through could be halted in the beginning, and that's why I want people to be successfully single, because a lot of times in loneliness, or I want to have sex, or I want to please God, but I know I'm not sure how long I can, because that was my thoughts. I was like, God, you better send me a husband because I'm going to sin. you
Hmm.
know so a lot of us rush into
Yeah.
marriages, and then we're stuck with this person that, had I known, or if I'd have did my
Right.
research, or if I'd have looked into it, we'd have saved ourselves some. And there's that Holy Spirit telling you that feeling, that intuition. Spoken to people whose marriages have not lasted long, and I said, I just had this question. I was like, was there any time when you felt like this maybe wasn't the right thing? And you know, at first they'd be like, no, no, I was in agreement. I heard the Holy Spirit. And then it comes around to that there were red flags. We
It's like,
can't
okay.
pass the red flag.
Right.
And if you're successfully single, then, and which successfully single is knowing who I am, knowing who I belong to, where I'm going, what's my purpose and my destiny. We're
Yeah.
not going to allow a lot of nonsense in that area,
Right, right,
you
right,
know,
right. Because you say in your book
because
that you believe women should be clear and upfront about what they will and will not stand for right in the beginning.
I think so. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think that the first thing as soon as you get there at the table, look, I just want to let you know I'm celibate.
Right, right.
But I think that it's important because you need to find out if that's where that person is. And this is clear, not just about celibacy, but about where the person is going in their life. Because marriage for me could be within the next year. And for them,
Yeah.
they have their own timeline.
Right.
And if our timelines don't match, then you know what? It doesn't make the person a wrong person. It makes him the wrong person for
For
right now.
you, yes, or that person.
It's
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
have to allow them to say, you know what, that's not my timeline. And you be honest, not like, oh well, it ain't gonna work out, but really like, you know what, let them know how you feel, but I'm not willing to sacrifice where I'm going for that, because it doesn't line up with where I'm going.
Right.
And then we really have to be willing to let some things go.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
And if it's for you, it'll come back. And if
yeah.
it's not, then let it go.
Because I've seen some singles, I was going to say, where I hear this often, that they kind of know that this person is really, like you said, not on the same page with them and not wanting the same thing that they want. However, it's
Hmm.
something about it where they just stay anyway, like they just continue to do this. Um,
Because that's Mr. Right Now. I
right.
call him Mr. Right Now. Like,
Yeah.
he's okay for right now, which I, I'm not clear with the thinking, because it's like, if Mr. Right Now is there, then how can Mr. Right find space
Yeah.
around you, because someone else is occupying
Yeah.
a space that he's
Absolutely.
supposed to be in? I
Absolutely.
don't,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
I love it. I love that. Now, you have some laws of singletude. So, since we're talking about being upfront with what we will and what we will not, take and all of this kind of stuff. So, let's talk about the laws of singletude. The first one, love and respect yourself, right?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, we have to have a healthy self esteem,
Mm-hmm.
and that goes back to knowing who you are in Christ. And a lot of things, these are topical, and I get it, because part of what I do is counsel, and so I understand that there may be some things in people's past that have broken their esteem, or
Yeah.
have hardened it, or there's been some things that parents do to their children that crack or damage it. So I understand that. So if there are some things that you deal with, and most adults know when they see the same repeat cycle, like why do I keep choosing a man that abused me? Because it's like, is what is it about me that
That attract.
chooses
Yeah.
someone that attracts that,
Yeah.
or what is it about me that all the men I date cheat, or they? You have to. So there are things that happen that when it's not where you have to know all the answers, but you have to be able to look in the mirror and realize that this is who I am.
Exactly what I
And
was
these are
thinking.
some areas that need some work. And these are some areas that I'm okay with. And these are, and despite it all, God says I'm wonderfully made.
Yeah.
But if you deal with low self esteem, then there are things out there. Thank God for counseling. You can learn to love yourself,
Yeah.
to speak, so you don't need to hear this from some person, because the first person tell you that, you think they love you because they told you the words you've never heard as a child. So basically, having a good love and respect of yourself.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I don't want to. If you had a party, and we talked about this before.
Right. Right.
If I said, hey, I'm having a party, but I'm gonna need you to bring the DJ, the food, invite your friends, and then, matter of fact, we're gonna have it at your house. You will look at me like I'm crazy. Like, wait,
Right. We
I'm
talked about that.
this your party, but I'm bringing everything, and then, or would I say, or would you rather I say, hey Tina, I'm having a party on Friday. I can't wait to see you there. And when you show up, everybody's having a wonderful time, and you may wanted to bring a dish, so you added to the fun, but
But
you
it's
you were
already there.
responsible for the fun.
Yeah.
That's a big responsibility, and it's no one else's job but God's to fill that void, not another person. But so many of us are looking to our mates to,
To do that.
pay help with the bills. Get your finances in order
Right.
to do the things that you. We have so many unrealistic things that a man is supposed to bring into our lives, or a female is supposed to bring to our lives, and then when they don't,
You're
we
disappointed.
feel like
Yeah.
they've come short. Like, how? Then now we have problems. But you created a problem because you had a false expectation for that
Right.
person.
Right. Right.
So that was the first one. You have to
Yep.
learn to love and respect yourself.
Yep. The next one, remember to enjoy life.
So this goes back to the party.
Right.
You should be enjoying life now. There are things in marriage that are so wonderful. Oh my God, you get to have sex, you get a partner that you love, you can unify and have children, you can build. However, there are some wonderful things about being single. You don't have to ask anybody. You can go where you want. You can
Right.
explore some things. You can go to out of the country. You can do things. This is the time when you find out who you are. This is the time that you walk in your purpose and your destiny. This is the time. And you know what I believe?
What?
I really believe that God has this path for us. If you can just picture just a path, like you're walking down this path,
Yeah.
and as you enjoy life and walk and learn things of God and learn things about you, that you pick up the stuff that God had for you. Like the businesses. Oh my God, I met someone, and now because of this business, I get to travel the world. And then while I'm traveling the world, I truly believe that you will connect with the person, and that person is not always going to. Well, he's never going to walk up to the door and say that, hey, God sent me, I'm your husband. And if
Right.
you
Right.
do,
Right.
run, he crazy. But, so I say start having fun now. Because
Right.
people are looking. Men are looking. Females are looking. And I'd rather meet your brothers, because they're brothers and sisters in Christ. Meet your brothers with no expectation of him being your husband.
Right.
I have a group that's called Singletude with my church. We have life groups, and it's interesting because there's men and women in the group, and the men say as soon as we walk in, the women think that the first thing they say out their mouth is, "That's my husband." He said, and they don't even know if we
Whoa.
married or not before they
Like,
say
whoa,
it.
whoa, whoa. Wait a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, a lot of us is not always looking, to connect. It's like,
Right.
and then the flip side was when a man do speak to them or say something to them, then the female thinks that they're after them.
It's like
You
no.
know, we
Mhm.
have to. There's a dialogue that goes on. There's a friend of mine. Her name is Monique Head, and she has the female. She has a program called the Female Allure,
Mhm.
and it's how you can allure. You know how to interact with um, people of the opposite sex.
Mhm.
And then there's another lady, her name is Taurus Sense. She's amazing. And she has a blog and she talk about different things that's so relevant. You know, honestly, with me, it's just I want you to become successfully single, but there's so much out there. If you want to be married, then why don't you find out make what is attractive to men other than what you think? Why don't you try seeing and talking to people and finding courses that help you with this?
Right.
Maybe you're not an outgoing, maybe you're an introvert, extrovert. There are things that can help you is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And what you should do is have a good time, enjoy life, travel, have fun, because there is fun with the one, and then there's also fun with being in the marriage as well.
Right. 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 Now you talk
And they
about
both have challenges too.
yes. Yes. You talk about finding new ways to improve, and you kind of touch on that too, just a
So
moment ago. But
go
yeah,
ahead.
I was saying you kind of touched on that just a little bit. But finding new ways to improve.
Right. First of all, self improvement is the best. I know at first, the first thing when I started this process, I didn't care about improving myself. I was like, send me a husband, you
Right.
know.
Right.
And one of the things we say, well, I want a man. He got to be 6 foot this, tall, dark, handsome. However, we haven't cared about our health. We don't care about our. He got to have good credit. Well, what about your credit? Why
Right.
don't you use this time in your singleness to get to take care of you? Because life has this way of pretty just crazy things that can happen. Why don't you become your best authentic version of you? And it starts somewhere. You should write down the top 5 things that you would like to change about yourself to better yourself. And everybody has them, myself included. Every time you should reevaluate yourself every 2 years, every year. Like, what are the top 5 things I can do to take me to the next level, or however many. But before we look outwardly for someone else, and they have to come with a level of excellence, let's try to
Look
find some
inwardly.
level of excellence within ourselves.
That's it. Clean up. Get a plan. Clean
Yeah.
up. Get a plan. Right.
Yes,
And
get a plan. Get a plan. Order is key. Start. You ever that the most successful you've been is when you found order in an area and then move forward. So while you're single, clean up.
that's
Clean
right.
up your space, clean up your life,
Okay.
clean up yourself. Cause I mean, honestly, you don't wanna you don't wanna add someone to your mess. And then the reason why I say these things, and there's a dual. First of all, these are good good laws. But
Hmm.
secondly, once you work on yourself and improve yourself, and once you start cleaning up different areas of your life, and once you get a plan and you know what your purpose and destiny for, now you are setting yourself up to the point that I'm not going to, I work too hard on me to just accept any old
Anything.
person
Yep.
into my life.
Hmm.
You'll see the value in who you are and how much of work it took to you for you to get here, that you won't be so easily to accept
Anything.
anything less than God's best.
That's it. That's it. So, Yolanda, how can the audience hear more from you? Do you have a podcast?
I do. It's called Hey Miss Yo, and it's on Anchor.
Okay. Okay. So they can listen
And
to your podcast. You got your
and
book.
they can get the book, and they can on Facebook. I have a page. It's called Singletude, and I pop on there and we talk about singleness and things of that nature. If you're in the St. Louis area, you can attend our life group. It's every Saturday from 4 to 6. Well, not currently. Now we're
Right.
online, so
Right.
I
Right.
have a Zoom. If anyone's interested, they can just message me on Facebook, and I can give them the access code and they can join us. And it's fun. I know a lot of people, they when they come to our singles life group, they always say, "Well, I didn't know what to expect," but when they got there, they truly enjoyed it. It's
All
fun.
right. All right.
We
And
talk about stuff.
yeah. So on Facebook, are you on Instagram?
I am yo underscore empowers with an S you underscore you. So yo empowers you.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much, Yolanda, for
No,
joining
thank
me,
you.
girl.
I
It's
love talking. I love being in the love lounge.
I'm telling you, girl, we just kick back in the lovers lounge right now. And listeners, I hope that you all have enjoyed listening to this podcast where we talk to experts and other guests on topics related to love, relationships, and sex. I am your host, Tina Love, and until next time, peace. And of course, please don't forget